fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ ti ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ ti ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Àdànà kó kọjá mórí nǹkan fèrè, bàbá rere káwé parí. BGI TV, we are the pace setter. Bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣọ̀n station tí dòde.
Mo kí gbogbo ojú tó wò mí káàkiri ayé, mo kí wa lọ́kùnrin lóbìnrin lọ́mọdé lágbà nínú ilé yìí, mo kí wa kú ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀sẹ̀ tuntun. Èní tí ń ṣe Sunday ọjọ́ 23 oṣù kẹfà June ọdún 2024. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ̀ odò rí bó ló ti rí lọ́dọ̀ ti yín o. Ẹ wá kan fìdílé tàbí kẹ fìdílé kan kẹjá jọ jẹ̀gbádùn ètò ọ̀rọ̀ tó ń lọ ti ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀sẹ̀ ìní Sunday tá a gbé wá sí ojú ìwòran yín láti ìkànnì BGI TV bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣọ̀n ní orí YouTube, bákan náà lórí Facebook àjẹgbàgédèmọ̀ wùtàláwìyà àdébáyọ̀, lórí Instagram àjẹgbàgédèmọ̀_22, ẹ wá rí lórí TikTok àjẹbàbá gbàgédèmọ̀. Ẹ máa fọ́lù wa láwọn àyè yìí kẹ́ẹ̀sì subscribe sí orí YouTube channel wa èyí tẹ́ bá ti ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀. Lánàá àgbé àlejò kan wá, alájà Queen Ara láti London àgbé wá síbí tí wọ́n sì fi dá wa lójú ní gbangba pé no going back ní Yorùbá nation, àwọn òsùn àwọn owó lórí Yorùbá nation. Yorùbá àti Ìgbò kò fẹ́ ìjọpọ̀ tá wà láàrin wa, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn àyè kan wà tó jẹ́ pé ìrònú wa papọ̀, ìrònú pé dandan sẹ́ àlékò ní kálukú máa lọ ẹ̀. Bàbá Banji Akintoye àti arákùnrin kan tó jọmọ Ìgbò tí ìrònú wọn jọ papọ̀, òní wọ́n máa jọ parapọ̀ tí wọ́n jọ bá gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá sọ̀rọ̀. Bàbá jẹ́ ká kó yé wa ibi tí àwọn bá ìgbésẹ̀ dé lórí ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá nation. Níbo náà bá dé? Kí ni ìgbésẹ̀ tó ń gbélé lórí? Ǹjẹ́ tí ẹ lè gba Yorùbá nation? Ǹjọ́ òótọ́ ni pé Yorùbá nation fẹ́ wáyé? Kí ni kó ṣẹlẹ̀ sáwọn ọmọ Yorùbá? Ṣé ká fọkàn balẹ̀ ni àbí ká gbọ́kàn kó mbẹ̀? Ẹ jẹ́ ká bá wọn lọ síbi ìpàdé Zoom tá a máa ń ṣe lọ́sọ̀ọ̀sẹ̀. Ibẹ̀ ni bàbá Banji Akintoye ni wọ́n ti fọ igbá yọ̀gá lórí ọ̀rọ̀ àwa Yorùbá pé káwọn ọmọ Yorùbá o, ọmọ aládé, ká fi ọkàn balẹ̀ pé láìpẹ́ láì jìnà á tó bọ́ lóko ẹrú Fúlàní, àbí kí ni ká ti pè é, Fúlàní tó ń kó ẹran ẹ̀ tí wọ́n wá fi ń jẹko, tí wọ́n sì tún wá nísìnyí wọ́n tún ti wá bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀nà míì tán tún bẹ̀rẹ̀ ni pé káwọn máa yọ àdá bẹ́ oko táwọn ọmọ Yorùbá bá gbé. Ìtaṣó lánàá ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ láwọn gbọ́ tán sọ French, bẹ́ẹ̀ ni torí pé Niger àti Chad French náà sọ ń bẹ̀, àwọn francophone countries ni wọ́n, kẹ́ ẹ fi lè mọ̀ báwọn Fúlàní yóò ṣọmọ Nàìjíríà. Ẹ gbọ́, ẹ má jẹ́ dènà pẹ̀lú kí n má gbogbo lọ́lé olóró, ká má sọ léyà, ká má sọ dìlé pẹ́. Ẹ jájọ bá wọn dókè lọ́hùn ká lọ gbọ́ nǹkan tí bàbá Banji Akintoye sọ. Ó yá o.
I celebrate Yoruba World Media for facilitating this conversation. It is very important. It's a very important conversation. Look, I'll tell you a bit about myself, my background. I was born in the East, but I grew up in Lagos. I did primary school in Lagos, secondary school in Lagos, and then I went to university in Port Harcourt before going to England. And, so my formative years were in Lagos among the Yoruba people. And we lived together. in harmony. You know, I'm a Christian, but in our house in Lagos, we had Muslims on one side, we had Christians in the same compound. And during the Layer festival, they will kill ram, they will cook rice, they will call us, we will come and go and eat. And during Christmas, we invite the Muslim family, they'll come over, and we'll eat, we'll celebrate together, we'll live together in harmony. Because we are a people with common values. We had no problems whatsoever. The values are pretty obvious: liberality, equality, education, especially girl-child education, and religious tolerance. Yorubas, Muslims and Christians live together, and they intermarried, and still continue to intermarry. They get on, the two nations get on very well together. But what happened to us is typical of what happens when a husband and wife is fighting and a third party comes in. A third party came into our relationship and sowed discord among the Igbo and the Yoruba nation. That's it. And that third party is Britain. Britain came in and sowed discord among our nations. And as a people, which is our collective failure, we haven't come together to say, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So the Igbo and the Yoruba people, the differences in culture, etc., like every other set of nations. But in terms of values, I maintain that we have common values and we should be best of friends. There's no reason whatsoever why we should not be best of friends. But we'll discuss more about that as the program goes on.
Yeah, thank you that you said we have common value, which is very interesting. Then let me go back to Professor Banji Akintoye, the leader of Yoruba self-determination struggle. Professor Banji Akintoye, the Honorable Tony said, we have common value as a Yoruba, and because he lived all his life in Lagos before moving to Port Harcourt. Also, like I too, I live in Port Harcourt, I live in Buku, I live in Bukuru, I live in everywhere in Port Harcourt. So, which I know, at least I know Port Harcourt. I grew up in Port Harcourt also too, so I know how it is. Now, Baba, with what Mr. Tony said, it is true that we have common value as a Yoruba indigenous self.
Yes, that's very true. Not just common values, we have very important contacts in our history. In the year 2020, I think, some of us put together a program that we called the Handshake Across the Niger. That was between the Yoruba people and the Igbo people. I was the chairman of the committee because it was Afenifere and Ohaneze Ndigo that joined hands together to put it together. And the two organizations appointed me chairman of the committee that would get it done. I was the chairman of the Handshake Across the Niger. And it was a very beautiful, big ceremony in Enugu, that shook the foundations of Nigeria because people were frightened. People have always cherished and luxuriated on Yoruba Igbo field were really frightened. So it is not surprising that they have suppressed the beautiful spirit of the Handshake Across the Niger. The truth of our relationship is as follows. We are people, we are black people. We are products of evolution in the West African sub-region. We Yoruba, we had southwest from the Niger and they created our own large country. They go east of the Niger and created their own large country also. And we are both very dynamic people. We have a lot in common. As my brother, Mr. Awusi said before me, there is a lot that we Yoruba and Igbo do together that it's not talked about. So what we get to talk about Yoruba and Igbo relations is hostility. Hostility, that's what we ever get to talk about. Hostility, the Igbo threatening the Yoruba are answering back, and it has been going on for many, many decades. But as he said, the truth of the matter is that here is a situation in which two people who are naturally very close have somebody to come in between them for their own purpose and create discord between the two. And it is not just that we are saying, you know, that discord, the planting of that discord is documented. It's documented. And I will tell you this story. I'm sure that most Yoruba people have never had it before, most Igbo people have never had it before. But that's where this whole field started. In 1933, an Igbo young man called Azikwe graduated from an American university, and he was returning home. Typical young man who just graduated, no money, nothing. And the colonial authorities stopped him in London and took him to meetings after meetings after meetings in the colonial office and told him, we can help you with a whole lot of things. Let us negotiate. And they pushed the negotiation onto him. And the end result was a deal. According to the deal, the British colonial administration in Nigeria. So it is the British that got the Yoruba and Igbo fighting one another. And a lot of Igbo people don't understand, a lot of Yoruba people don't understand also that the origin, the genesis of the Yoruba Igbo field is entirely British. That's the truth of the matter. And it is time that we should tell it to the world so that our people really understand why they are fighting one another. They are fighting needlessly. In 2020, we tried to mend it with a huge program celebrated in Enugu. I chairman that program. I did the preparation for that program. We wrote a book by two young people. A young Igbo scholar and a young Yoruba scholar got together and wrote the book. And I wrote the foreword for the book. And it was a great day in Enugu. But the tradition of hatred between the Yoruba and Igbo was already too well founded, too well organized, too well sunk into the hearts of a lot of people, that the handshake across the Niger has not achieved what we expected that it would do. But the Yoruba people need to know, and Igbo people need to know, that it was the British that organized, it was the British people that organized and orchestrated the hatred between the Yoruba and Igbo. There was nothing like that in the 1930s. Because there was one political organization in Lagos that everybody was a member of, the Yoruba youth movement. Everybody, all persons of all ethnic groups were members. But when the Yoruba and Igbo began to snipe at one another, the Nigerian youth movement disappeared, and new parties emerged, and so on and so forth. So it went on and on and on until the big fight of 1948. What happened in 1948 was that a group of Yoruba leaders had founded an association of the descendants of Oduduwa. But they were doing that in imitation of an earlier association that had been founded by Igbo in 1943, the Igbo State Union, led by Dr. Azikiwe. So the Yoruba founded their own in 1945 and finally brought it home to the Yoruba land in 1948. And Dr. Azikiwe just jumped at them, began to threaten them. We will fight you everywhere. We will fight you up the mountains. We will fight you in down the dale. We will fight you in the streets of London. We will fight you in the streets of Yoruba land in Nigeria. We will fight you even in your own homes, and so on and so forth. And the Yoruba began to answer back. Everything became dark and terrible between the Yoruba. It has never cleared since then. That's what happened. And our people are not wicked, but they don't know. The young man who comes from Lagos and says, Lagos is a no man's land, you know where that comes from. No man's land. The British decided in 1951 to 52 that Lagos will become the federal capital of the new Federation of Nigeria. And some people immediately began to say, the British have said Lagos is a no man's land, it doesn't belong to the Yoruba people anymore. That's where it started. But you say it today as if you are the originators of it, you are not. So it is important that we should take care of these things. I personally have a duty in this matter. In 1987, before our father Awolowo passed on, I was with him for 1 weekend. And we were talking in his living room in the morning. It was Saturday, and finally, in the evening, we went to have dinner. And he said to me, no, Banji, don't let us go to dinner yet. There is something I must not forget. That's our father Awolowo. There is something I was forgetting, but that I must not forget. So we stopped in the middle of the room, and he said to me, Banji, your generation, my generation has failed to do it, cannot do it. Your generation must find a way to work closely with people. It must happen. It is the only way you two will be able to achieve whatever you want to accomplish. It is the only way your two countries will prosper in the world. As he was saying that, Papa had invited him to come and have dinner with us in Kenya. So Papa repeated exactly the thing that he had said to me. But we didn't do anything about it. I left Nigeria in 1990. When I came back in 2015, the first person I went to visit was Chief Olaniwajai. And that day he said to me, Banji, listen, what about that thing that our father said to you that day, to you and me? That we, Yoruba, must find a way to work with our Igbo brethren. That there is really no difference between us. That we are the same kind of. Yeah.
That is a huge advice. I'm still coming back to Mr. Tony because what Baba just said that.
Yes. So that is our situation. We have more in common than we want to know. And all this trash that we are saying against each other is just trash. You come to Lagos, you say Lagos is no matter. Are you going to kill all the Yoruba people there in order to protect it over? Is that possible?
Thank you, Sadadi.
It is nonsense. But in order to irritate and insult the Yoruba, some people are saying, why? Because there is already deeply seated in their hearts the feud that the British planted between the Yoruba and the Igbo. That's all. And the British planted the field against the Yoruba and the Igbo for British interests, not for the interest of the Igbo.
All right,
for the interest of the
Daddy. Now I'm going back to Mr. Tony because we call it. Those who are watching us, please kindly help us to share this program. This program, we call it Historical Dialogue. Please, between Professor Banji Akintoye, the leader of Yoruba self-struggle, and Honorable Tony Unwisu. Am I getting it right? Unwisilabi?
That's correct.
Unwisi.
Okay, okay. That is the leader of Igbo Global Network. Now, according to what Baba said, that Awolowo said, there is no way we must work in with Igbo. And if you remember, Baba said that the traditional hatred between the Igbo and the Yoruba, it is British agenda. And if we look at it very well, we could see clearly that both of us have one just common enemy who are destroying us, who are killing us, who are destroying our farm, who are killing our children, who are destroying our future. And until today, as powerful as Igbo is in the history, as powerful as Yoruba is in their history, we could not be able to conquer these people. Do you think both of us are really work in the same direction to fight common enemies and to overcome this common enemy? What do you thought about that?
God bless Professor Banji Akintoye. God bless Professor Akintoye. This statement he made today, I heard it for the first time from his lips about 2 years ago when we began working together. We began working together at different organizations who had a three-man meeting on both sides. And I heard this statement for the first time during my conversation with our Baba Akintoye, that the Igbo and Yoruba nation must work together. And this was the instruction from the late sage himself, Awolowo, for the liberation of the black man, the black race. It tells you all you need to know. It tells you all you need to know. So it's a case of
first time that late Chief Obafemi Awolowo told the Yorubas that we must work with Igbo. Now he said he's hearing it for the first time. Honorable Tony, please, can you continue?
Thank you, host. You're doing a fantastic job. You're doing a fantastic job. It's not easy to manage all the gremlins in the background trying to disrupt your good work. Well done. Congratulations. You're doing a good job. And for the audience at home, please support this program. Our brother here is doing a fantastic job for our two nations, and indeed the black race, the Africans around the world, the black race. So please support his program, like, subscribe, share, let it go viral so that all our peoples will hear what he's doing today. We'll celebrate your leadership and your example, sir. And so I was saying that God bless Professor Akintoye for bringing this revelation to our consciousness. I heard it the first time from his lips about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we began working together, on this journey of self-determination for our different nations. And you couldn't have a more profound coming from Professor Akintoye than that. And we owe him gratitude. Generations unborn owe Professor Akintoye a debt of gratitude for making this statement to the hearing of our peoples. And so today, June 19, 2024, wherever you are, remember this day. This is the day that Professor Akintoye, our father, told all of us what the late sage himself said, that our two nations must find a way to work together for us to fulfill our potential and to liberate the black race. And I will add to that by saying this. It's very easy to keep your head down and be looking at the things that divide us, instead of lifting your head and seeing the big picture. Your enemy will always want you to be divided, to be quarreling, to be fighting each other. And we've seen that in this historic program. On 2 occasions, we've been taken off the internet. Just because we're discussing the issue of the 2 nations working together, being in harmony, having dialogue without gremlins in between. And so it is for all of us who have heard the statement today to become disciples and apostles of the same message. Because Professor Akintoye has not told us what our chief told him, Chief Awolowo told him for the fun of it. He's telling us is that you too, Ikenna, you too, Wale, you too, Biola, you too, Ndidi, will take this message to your own peoples, that this is what Chief Awolowo said as far back as 1987, that we must work together for us to fulfill our potential. We must put our differences aside and work together to fulfill our potential and fulfill the black race. We must understand that we allow the third party, a third hand, to come between us. Just like in a marriage, when a third hand, the third party comes in between husband and wife. That is how the enemy works. It comes in between you and causes division. We will go to the man and tell the man this, and go to the woman and tell the woman that. And before you know, husband and wife are fighting each other. Meanwhile, what they ought to do is to put the third party out of the marriage, and both of them sit down together and say, let's work together for our own good. So, and if you look at what other nations do, even Britain or anybody else, the white supremacy, people who are trying to keep the black race down, keep Yoruba and the Igbo people down, they come together for their own mutual interests. Our people remember that Germany and England were once enemies, World War II. Today they are friends under NATO. France and England were once enemies. Today they are friends under NATO. Germany and United States, even England and United States were once enemies. Today they are friends under NATO. It's called common interest. They put their differences aside and pursue common interest. Japan and United States, Pearl Harbor, were once enemies. Today they're allies. So our people will say, we must borrow ourselves brain. We must think for ourselves. The Yoruba people are a sophisticated nation, just like the Igbo nation is. We are brilliant people, we are smart people, but we must think for ourselves and not allow others to think for us. We must come together and dialogue and solve our problem and keep the third party out. Whether it's Fulani or Britain or anybody else, can prove. Britain and Germany were once enemies. World War II, Hitler marched through Czechoslovakia, marched through Poland, marched through France, and was going to come into England and decimate England. England was rescued because the United States came into the war. Now, you think about it, England and the United States were once enemies. 1776. But they became, now they're allies. And when England got into trouble, the US came to their rescue. Today they are allies, working towards a common interest. This is, our people will say, Eyarayi brain. Borrow yourself. We must think for ourselves. We must borrow ourselves brain. The people who are trying to divide us are uniting with each other for their common interest. The people who sow discord among us are uniting for common interest. United Kingdom has a policy of one Nigeria. But United Kingdom walked out of Europe. Brexit. Why? Why? We must think for ourselves. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. So as the conversation continues, but we are, if people will come on interest, we have common values, we have common interests. It is our duty, our friends. It is our duty. It is your duty, as much as it's my duty, to take the message that the late sage gave to Prof. Akintoye and share it as an evangelist among our different nations. You that are hearing this today in this landmark program that our host has put together, that the Yoruba nation has put together, you that are hearing this today, it is now up to you to take the message that Prof. Akintoye has given to me and given to you and run with it. And look for common interest instead of a reason to divide our different nations, because we will only be fulfilled as a nation, as a people, by coming together and working together and taking the counsel of Chief Awolowo. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tony, for your speech. Thank you so much. You have spoken most of my mind. And then I say kudos to you. And then the Igbo family also, they're really proud of you from the comment section. Thank you so much that we have Mr. Tony in our board today. That is the leader of Igbo Global Network on dialogue, historic dialogue with Professor Banji Akintoye, the leader of Yoruba Nation struggle. Let me go back to Baba, Professor Banji Akintoye. Baba, as Mr. Tony already explained, and then at least he tried to expatiate more about the relationship between the Yoruba that's resolved. And with situation on ground now, you already said before, when the Ebola said Lagos is no marshland, and it didn't bring a lot of dispute between the Ebola and the Yoruba. But Mr. Tony didn't even kick against this, and he also against that statement, that the statement, it is just a kind of a barbaric statement. Now that we are working on the same direction, like what Mr. Tony said. Mr. Tony said on his study said, we must leave our differences and work and face the same common enemy. How do you think that we as a Yoruba and the Igbo people can work together to leave our differences and face our common enemy, sir, as per the historical says?
Yes, that's why Tony and I agreed to hold this program. A lot of our people don't know what is happening. A lot of our people don't know the origins of the things that they are saying, the nasty things that they are saying against each other. If you let them know, some people will solve, some people will reason. And so information, correct information is essential for killing this feud between the Yoruba and the I have not gone into, because in 2020, when we were working on handshake across the Niger, we did a lot of research, a whole lot of research about Yoruba and Igbo relationships in history. Now, I'm not talking about that now, because there is no time to talk about it. But it's a very interesting subject. The Yoruba and Igbo have so much in common. For instance, the word Igbo is an ancient Yoruba word. It's also an ancient Igbo word. In Yoruba, it means people. Igbo means people. The original, the earliest Yoruba settlements in Ife, they would call themselves the Igbo. That's where some places in Yoruba land are called Igbo, this Igbo, that. And among the Igbo, I don't know, I believe it also means people. It's the same word. In Yoruba, when you change the intonation a little, like Igbo It becomes a crowd of people. Yeah. And there are so many other words in the Igbo language and in the Yoruba language that are very common. Ifa, for instance, is Ifa for us in Yoruba land. Among the Igbos, Afa, and so on and so on and so forth. So there is a lot in common between these two people. And we are the two very dynamic peoples. The Yoruba got the idea of education first and grabbed it because they are a people of the coast. The Igbo people got it later in the 1920s. The first schools were not built in Igbo land until the 1920s. Yeah. And yet they became one of the most educated peoples on the African continent. Yeah. So we are very similar in our approach to matters, in our love of excellence, in our desire to achieve prosperity. We are very similar. So, but our people don't know that, and keep saying nasty things about one another. Lagos is no man's land. Well, where did you get that from? Simply because the British encouraged some politicians in the 1950s to say that after Lagos had been declared the capital of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they began to say that Lagos had become a no man's land, no longer Yoruba. That is it. But when you say today, you say it as if you will make Lagos a no man's land. That's not true. You cannot do it. You just are repeating an insult that is basically meaningless. That's all. So if our people know these things, they might be able to stop. And I believe they will stop. We can work together as two important nations in Africa. And we can work towards the liberation of the African peoples, of Black people of Africa. Changes are now beginning to occur in our relationship to our conditions in the world. Black nations are beginning to rethink another. That's exactly what our father Awolowo meant. He said, Banji, I am not saying that it is going to be easy, but you must do it. You must get it done. You and the Igbo people must work together. Your generation of Yoruba people and the generation of Igbo people must work together in the interest of the Black race and in the interest of your different nations. That is it. It can be done. The answer is we must not let anybody stop us now. We started this program, and the powers that control the world are saying, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. Yeah. I want to say that the young man who has been going around saying very nasty things about the Yoruba. One young man in 2014 wrote an article. He said, I don't even regard the Yoruba as human beings. They are not living in this world. Where did you get that from? A leading Igbo man in Ohanese said about 4 or 5 months ago that the Yoruba have no history. Where did you get that from? The Yoruba have as big a history as any other people on earth. A deeper history than Britain. A deeper history than most European countries. The Yoruba people. Yeah. So, we need this kind of program. We need to again and again and again. And maybe we will reach a point at which they will be tired of trying to stop us to tell the truth to our people. We will tell the truth to our people. and the Yoruba nation and the Igbo nation will stop hating one another and will learn to work together in order to liberate the black race. Thank you.
ẹ̀yin wa tí ẹ ń wò wá àdúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín bàbá wa Professor Banji Akintoye àti Honourable Tony ọ̀nà ni àtijọ́ wà ní orí ètò láti àti àtàrọ̀ kí sì ni tó tò ní kí dáre ọ̀nà dàpọ̀ sí dialogue ìyẹn ni pé kí àjọsọ àjọsọpọ̀ àjọyérọ̀ láàrin àwa àti àwọn ìran Ìgbò ọ̀nà ni àtiwá. Honourable Tony, the leader of Igbo Global Network. He has been on this program and we become a family. That's what we call when the proverb says,
is ignorant about the truth of the matter, there's no telling what he's going to do. Okay? And when you allow a third party to come between you, between the two nations, and when just like in marriage, husband and wife, a third party comes, a male or female, it becomes a problem. So the way to solve that problem is to get the third party out of the marriage, and then husband and wife who have common interests will have a conversation, and then they will solve their problems. Okay? So that is the cause of the hatred. So anybody who's saying that the Yoruba people do not have a history, the Yoruba people are this, Yoruba people are this, the more you say that, the more you demonstrate your ignorance. Okay? And the only thing you can do with an ignorant person is give them information. Okay? So the hatred is because of ignorance. That's number one. Number two, part of why it has persevered is because of the leadership failure. The leadership gap, which is what you are breaching, which is what your leadership, sir, our host, you're breaching that by bringing these two nations together to have real proper dialogue. And as you continue to do this and continue to run this program, you will see that information will become available to our people who are confused, and the hatred will disappear. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is on the topical issue of Lagos being no man's land. Any Igbo man who is telling you that Lagos is no man's land is as ignorant, is as daft as a brush. The British have a saying, say daft as a brush. There can be no more clearer statement that Lagos is Yoruba land than that. It is nonsense. It's complete BS. Okay? Lagos is as much Yoruba land as Enugu is Igbo land. Imagine someone coming tomorrow and waking up and say, oh, Enugu is Yoruba land. That's nonsense. It's an ill-informed person. Ignorance does a lot of damage. Okay? And so we'll fix that by having this kind of dialogue. And I continue to celebrate your leadership for putting this program together, and also the example that Prof. Akintoye has given to us. The final thing I'll say to you is this, and this is for all of us at home to go think about.
That is takeaway.
A takeaway. At Igbo Global Network, we have defined Nigeria, the Nigeria conundrum, as a slave plantation. And if you have not read the Will Lynch letter on how to make a slave, go read it. It's on the internet. Nigeria was designed to be a slave plantation. The whole idea is to divide the people, sow discord amongst them, so that they keep on fighting amongst themselves. Therefore, they never get to lift their head. As they keep on fighting, you keep stealing their resources. As they keep on fighting, you keep manipulating them. On our next program, I'll tell you more about the slave plantation, but go look up Willie Lynch's letter on the making of a slave. Nigeria is designed to be a slave plantation. The same rights that Europeans have given to themselves, they refuse us those rights. They talk about democracy, they don't talk about justice. Okay? And each time they cause problem among our nations, they say, oh, they gave them 5 million towards their democracy. 5 million is not the issue. The issue is justice. The issue is equity. The issue is sowing discord and causing confusion. When the people are left in a state of confusion, they keep on fighting each other. Therefore, they cannot contribute to science and technology. We cannot teach mathematics in Yoruba language or Igbo language. They're not able to teach physics and chemistry in Igbo or Yoruba language. And if you cannot teach mathematics, physics, and chemistry in Yoruba language or Igbo language, you can never compete against the other nations. Your civilization continues to be hindered. Your growth continues to be hindered. Your children continue to speak a foreign language instead of speaking Yoruba language or Igbo language. And so we must borrow ourselves brain. The Yoruba nation and the Igbo nation, you must borrow yourselves brain. I lived in Europe and America now for so many years, like a lot of us. The French, in France, they speak French. They don't speak Yoruba language. In England, they speak English. They don't speak Hausa or Yoruba language. In Germany, they speak Dutch. They don't speak Igbo or Yoruba language. They teach their children up to PhD level in Dutch, in French, in English. Why are our universities not teaching our people in our language? It is a deliberate design to keep our civilization down. If Yoruba nation have been left the trajectory in which they were going before all of this nonsense, it would be a whole different country by now. And so we must borrow ourselves brain, we must think for ourselves, we must keep the third party out of our relationship, and we must make up our mind that we are not enemies, but we're friends who allowed enemies to come between us, and we must solve that problem. It is not a responsibility that all of us have, which the late sage gave to us via Prof. Akintoye so many years ago. So now you're a custodian, you're an apostle, an evangelist of that responsibility. So it is now your responsibility, all of you who are hearing us today, who are hearing Prof. Akintoye, who are listening to this conversation that our moderators put together. It is now your responsibility to bring your leadership to bear, to make sure that you make peace between our nations, to focus on our common interests and not what divides us. Because if we do that, I promise you, within a short period of time, we will be a true competitor for Nobel Prize awards, for all manner of inventions around the world. Nigeria is a slave plantation designed purposely to keep the Yoruba nation down and to keep the Igbo nation down. That is the design for Nigeria. It is not for anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow.
You said Nigeria is a slave plantation. At least in our next episode, you will try to explain that better. So let me give the floor to Olayomi Koiki. Olayomi Koiki, please.
I just want to say thank you to my brother, Tony Wisi.
All right, sir.
There's very little that
I think our Baba is still talking
in the last few minutes. There's very little. I just want to thank you. If you want to know what is really at the bottom of the Nigerian thing, remember a few things. One, the federal government of Nigeria once decreed that the histories of the various nationalities of Nigeria must not be taught in Nigerian schools. What does that tell you? That the Yoruba must not teach their history in Yoruba schools. Igbo must not teach their history in Igbo schools. Edo must not teach their history in Edo schools. Chiefs must not teach their history in chief schools. What does that tell you? That's enslavement. That you are slaves. You have no right to try to lift up your head. That's what it means. Let me tell you another story. Our father, Professor Babs Fafunwa, who was Dean of the Faculty of Education in Obafemi Awolowo University, started a program in the 1970s, in the late 70s, a program on what he called mother tongue elementary school, teaching young people in their mother tongue. And he started with the Yoruba language. And it became very popular in the world. UNESCO was so ecstatic about it that they said, okay, we will fund it. So they were funding it in the Obafemi Awolowo University. Then one day, a federal minister, a Fulani federal minister, phoned the vice chancellor of the university of Obafemi Awolowo University and said, is that program of teaching Yoruba children by Yoruba still going on? And the vice chancellor said, yes, sir, it is going on. And he said, okay, the instruction from the federal government is that it should be shut down. The vice chancellor answered, no, we cannot shoot it down because we don't finance it. It is UNESCO that finances it. And the honorable minister answered, are you telling me, Mr. Vice Chancellor, that UNESCO will run Nigeria for us? Are you telling me, Mr. Vice Chancellor, that UNESCO will run Nigeria for us? I said the federal government of Nigeria said, shut down that program, shut it down. That's the kind of country we live. You must, it does not matter that it was Yoruba, if it was the language too, that if it was able to, that some university professor in Nsukka started to use, they would say, shut it down also. It is the same thing. We are living in a slave camp, and the answer is to liberate ourselves from the slave camp. Thank you very much. I don't want to say more tonight.
So thank you, sir, Baba. So I think now I give Olayemi Koiki floor. Please, Olayemi Koiki, do you want to ask Baba a question or you want to ask Mr. Tony? You look
thank you so much to our prof, and I've been listening quietly behind. It's great to have you and to hear you speak, because not until we realize the power of your knowledge and history that you have given us to play with, and it's really helping in this discussion of the Yoruba nation, and likewise educating us. I can assure you that the job that you've given us from all the medias, we are working back to back on it. We are treating your the goodwill to the good news to prosperity. We are currently discussing on my side the youth program. And while I was having transmission at about 2 a.m. these early hours, many of our youth, and this also will go to our guest, Mr. Tony, we've seen many of our youth that have gone into crimes. They've gone into all kind of manners of what Nigeria has turned them into. The same problem existed, according to Professor Banji Akintoye, in Singapore when they were pulling out from Malaysia. And we've seen the transformation of Singaporeans in the last, decades. My question to our guest is, what kind of future? Because I've listened to the issues, and I always say that if we were never amalgamated, which is the first problem in 1914, we might likely have tension and issues between us and the Igbos, just like the Germans have problems with the English. Even within the UK, the Wales and the Scottish, they have problems between each other. But it seems that everybody doesn't want us to talk about the foundation of the 1914. But I know that the Yoruba would have done better, because the Yoruba newspaper that was established in 1850 in Abeokuta is about almost the same years ahead of the New York Times. And I can see that the president or the presidency responded back to, the article that came out from New York Times. But it seems not to be talking to the same of what we are discussing or in what Baba Akintoye has told us to talk about. So in the topic that we are treating right now is about the youth program. What do we do in the near future when we have these two nations, which I believe is coming up? It's going to come. It doesn't matter what anybody is saying. What kind of youth program can we think of that could be of benefit on the both sides? Because I know within even European countries and other countries, they have youth programs to support each of their countries. So my question is, how do we develop a youth program between the Yorubas and the Igbos? Because so much tension have occurred in the last 63 years of the zoo country, because I call Nigeria the zoo. What program do you think we can put together so that we can start allowing, the tension that have occurred in the last 63 years of the independence that was never given to us, and in the last 110 years of a fraudulent amalgamation by the British? And I know maybe Baba might also want to top up on that, but that question is going to Mr. Tony. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Amami. Youth program.
Okay. Baba can also help us. Baba can then top it up on us. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Olayomi Oyiki, I celebrate you. Pleasure to have you here, sir, in this dialogue. I've been following your work, for the past 2 years, and I celebrate your leadership, your example, and the passion with which you have continued to work with not just Sunday Boho, but the Yoruba people, and indeed your partnership with with Simon and Igbo Nation as well. Your work is a testament of your leadership and your generosity, and all of us. I pay tribute to your leadership, sir. The 1914 amalgamation was forced upon us. Our fathers did not choose that amalgamation. It was forced upon us, and that's why we call Nigeria a slave plantation. It was designed consciously. It wasn't accidental, because when you take a set of peoples, 300 different nations, and bring them together by force, under the force of the sword, there's no way they're going to make progress. There's no way. Look at Europe. How many are there in Germany? How many in England is how many? 60 million? Several nations in Europe are under 30 million, but they're individual nations. Berlin Conference, 1886, when they invaded Africa and decided to cause chaos and confusion and committed all manner of criminality, it was by design. Nigeria was by design. This is what the Yoruba and the Igbo people need to understand. The Nigerians need to understand. Nigeria was designed purposely, consciously, to be a slave plantation to stifle our growth, our progress. And just to corroborate what you were saying about the media in 1850 in Yoruba land, I also heard that television was black and white TV was produced first of all in Yoruba land, just as Cocoa House was before South Korea. And imagine that time as far back as then and now. So if Yoruba nation was left on its own on the trajectory in which they were going, of course they'll be competing with Europe now. Well, of course, to be major competitors with Japan and so on and so forth. So the staffing of our growth, our development was by design. This is what all of us need to understand. Nigeria means nigger area. Nigger area. Now you go figure that out. For all of us listening, it's like a man and a woman get married and they have a baby, and then a foreigner comes to name your child. Nigeria means nigger area, slave area. So whether you're Igbo or Yoruba or Tiv or Hausa, Nigeria was designed to be a slave plantation to keep all of us down so that we'll never get to make progress. So in direct response to your question, what can we do to correct the errors of the past? This program is part of that. This program that Yoruba Nation has put together is part of what we need to be doing to fix the problems. And so again, I celebrate our host and his team for putting the program together. And I think that as we continue to work together and dialogue, we will come up with other programs where we'll continue to have this dialogue and share the information, and our people to become aware. And finally, I will say that we must tell our people to keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. Anybody dividing Igbo and Yoruba nations, anybody, politician, foreigner, white supremacist, whatever, anybody sowing discord, talking about division between the Igbo and Yoruba nation is your enemy. That person does not want our progress. We are individual nations. We should be growing at our own pace, at individual nations. And if we do that, we will prosper and we will do business. Even the people who are talking about Ndi Igbo in Lagos, Ndi Igbo don't want to be in Lagos. They don't want to be in Lagos. They want to be in their own nation, in their own country. The Yoruba nation can impose visas, and Ndi Igbo will gladly pay, and they'll come do business, and they'll go back home. So our people need to understand that we must keep our eyes on the ball. We have an enemy that is trying to sow discord. And with this information that coming from this broadcast today from Baba Akintoye, passed down to us, indeed instruction, not just information, instruction from the late sage, passed down to us via Prof. Akintoye, that the Igbo and Yoruba nation must figure out a way to work together and not allow any division amongst them. If we do that, we're going to be successful. I will be glad we did. Thank you, sir.
Baba, any addition to this, sir? Daddy?
Yeah, the path to our achieving everything that my brother just said is we must have our two different countries quickly. And then let the spirit of African unity operate among us, in our schools, among our youth, in our places of work, everywhere, even on the farms, in our radio station, in our television station, everywhere, so that everybody knows that there is a duty that the Yoruba nation owes to the black race. And everybody knows, every good person knows that there is a duty that the Igbo people owe to the Yoruba, to the black race. And that the only way we can get it done is to collaborate, to cooperate, to join hands together. That is it. A program like that should be very easy to do once we have our separate countries. I sometimes sit around and think about such programs. I was invited to give a lecture in Enugu in 2017, and I gave a lecture on Igbo and Yoruba youths. Your duties and responsibilities. That made me a lot of friends among Igbo youths. Yes, we have a lot to do. Listen, the Yoruba are the largest single ethnic group in Black Africa. The Hausa are the second largest and the Igbo are the third largest. The three largest Black nations are in Nigeria. Tafawa Balewa said during a visit to the University College in Ibadan in 1964 that one of the greatest problems of Nigeria is that the three largest black nations are in this one country. So we are large. We are a large nation. We are a strong nation. And not only are the Yoruba and the Igbo large nations, they are also very dynamic nations. They have given, they have.
And let me say thank you to Baba, Professor Banji Akintoye, the leader of Yoruba Nation struggle. Thank you so much, sir. May God bless you. May God be with you. May God give you the good head, sir. Also to Mr. Honorable Tony, thank you so much for participating on this program. Mr. Tony is the leader of Igbo Global Network. Thank you so much for having our program. Till next time that we'll say, let the blessing of Almighty God be with you. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony.
Thank you, sir.
So back to our audience. Thank you so much. We say thank you to our friends.
Thank you very much.
We say thank you to our Igbo's audience who are on this platform. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you will be waiting for another episode on historical dialogue between the Yoruba nation and the Biafra nation we call Igbo. So I think this is a very fantastic program that we all need to emulate. We all need to learn from our past. And I said it when we remember, if two brothers are fighting, the stranger will be their property. We need to stop fighting each other. We need to stop hate each other. We need to stop what has gone in the past. We need to face the present situation. What's our common enemy? We all both have a common enemy. Our common enemy is those people who are killing on without reason. It's those people who are destroying our farm without reason. With those people who are killing our children, raping our wives, raping our sister without reason. We cannot count the number of people that have died innocent death. Also in Yoruba land. Do we need to continue in this way? No. It must stop. We must fight the same enemy. We must become the friend's neighbor. When Yoruba have their own nation, when Yoruba have their own nation, we can have a fissile into other two countries. Follow their rules and regulations. That likewise what is happening now. Mr. Tony is in Nigeria. It's another man's land. It's another country. He follow their rules and regulations. Kweki also is not in Nigeria. It's in another country. He follow the rules and regulations, but he's living there comfortably with his family and friends and everybody. Also likewise like me. We can have the same mentality if we have our own nation as Yoruba nation. Thank you so much. This is where we'll do the discussion of today. My name is Omorowo. Till the next time that we'll meet another episode, keep watching Yoruba World Media. Thank you so much. Goodbye and God bless you. Bye for now.
TV yìí mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ tí ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ, tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Ètò TV mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ tí ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ, tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Àjànàkú kọjá mórí nǹkan fèrè, bàbá rere káwí parí. BGI TV, we are the pace setter. Bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣọ̀n station tí dòde.